Hello, everyone. This video is going to detail how you conduct a dependent samples t-test on SPSS. Just keep in mind that this test is also referred to as a paired samples t-test, and that's very important. Kind of keep that in the back of your head as we proceed through the video here. And just a quick reminder that we perform this dependent samples t-test whenever we're looking at data that is paired or connected to each other. And typically we see this in a lot of pre and post-test type of assessments where the pre-test and post-test values are going to be paired with each other because they are based upon the same participant. So if we look here in data view, I've gone ahead and entered the data that would have been provided in this scenario. And we can see that one column is listed as our pre-test data and the other is listed as our post-test data. So if we are looking at it by rows now, we can see that we had 15 individuals in this particular study. And in regards to participant number one, we see that they had a pre-test score of 10 and then a post-test score of 9. This is really important to kind of see how the data is paired. You can kind of see that both of these data points are associated with the same individual, and it continues throughout the data set. This kind of indicates that it's important and appropriate to perform this paired samples test. Now, as always, before we do our analyses, we'll move on to the variable view to make sure that everything is listed appropriately. I've gone ahead and named these variables as pre-test and post-test. And you can see kind of moving along here, we don't really have too much to mess with until we get to measure. Once we get to measure, we want to make sure that SPSS knows that both of these are scale measurements because they are both continuous variables. There's no categories within these results. And that completes our variable view. It's only appropriate to run this test whenever it is some continuous variables, pardon me. Now, once you have ensured that the variable view is set up correctly and the numbers are inputted appropriately, now we can analyze our data. So we go to Analyze, Compare Means, and then it's Paired Samples t-test. That's why in the opening of the video, I said, keep this in your mind. Although we refer to it and most folks refer to it as a dependent samples t-test, SPSS has it listed as a paired samples t-test, so make sure that you find it and click on it appropriately. Now, you'll get a box that kind of pops up like this, and you'll see that we have our variables listed on the left-hand side here. And then we have a box titled paired variables, and this is going to indicate how we are going to pair our different variables. So obviously we only have one pair in this example. So we're going to go ahead and select on the variable one box and make sure that we move our pre-test over to variable one and then our post-test into variable two. So just make sure that you kind of indicate where the pairs are in regards to their location on this paired variable box. Make sure that they are listed upon the same row and that they are in the order that they should appear. So pre should always end up before post. And then you're going to want to unclick the estimate effect sizes, and then you can continue from here. Now I'm going to pull up my screen here to get the output. And with our output, we'll see that we have quite a bit of information to go through. So we have our descriptives here at the top. This is our pre-test and post-test descriptive statistics. We can see with the pre-test, we had a mean value of about 10.1, and the post-test mean was 11.1. And keep in mind, with this dependent samples t-test, we are looking to see if there is a statistically significant difference between these two means. Along the same output, we're able to see what our sample size is, as indicated by the column with the capital N. This shows that all 15 participants were used in both the pre-test and post-test analysis. This is incredibly important. These numbers need to match up to ensure that there's no missing data. And we can see the standard deviation for both the pre-test and post-test as well. Now, a lot of this data you do not need to necessarily worry about. Where you need to start focusing is here at the bottom box titled Paired Samples Test. And we're going to look over to our t value, our test statistic. And we see that we have a test statistic of negative 0.931. We have 14 degrees of freedom. And whenever we're looking at the significance, we're looking at our associated probability, we're going to use our two-sided p. In this, we're going to compare to our alpha level of 0.05 and make our assumptions based off of what is provided in comparison to our alpha level. So since our alpha level is that 0.05, we compare it to the two-sided p that is 0.365, and we see that our two-sided p is much greater than our alpha level. Therefore, we failed to reject the null hypothesis for this particular problem, that there is no statistically significant difference between the mean scores of the pre-test and the post-test.